Hello everybody and welcome back to my occasional video series on mental health photography and really whatever else takes my fancy. In this episode I'd like to talk about what evidence there might be for the benefits of intentional photography on mental health. But a bit about my background in this. I have a background in talking therapies for substance and behavioural addiction treatment. I've worked in residential and daycare settings, and there's a fairly significant evidence base for intentional and mindful activities with regards to treatment in those areas, linked to cognitive behavioural therapy, the idea of stoicism and mindfulness. And through that came this curiosity about what might be out there. So the too long didn't read on this is as always, more research is needed, but in what I was able to find, quite quickly actually, studies from the EU, US, China. Yes, it works for anxiety, depression, PTSD, and possibly addiction, using mechanisms similar to the ones already identified. I noticed some similarities between rehabilitation and the treatment programs that were offered within the settings that I was working. And there's some crossover there in the skills that I need to develop my photographic practice. And recognising this, as I say, my curiosity was piqued, and I've looked at some of the available research into the use of photography as a therapeutic tool. A quick caveat: it's my first dive into Google Scholar for the best part of a decade, and as I don't have access via an academic institution, the results I were able to get were limited. But I found 4 without too much difficulty, and I could have used a lot more. Primary among the themes within these papers is the use of mindfulness and intentionality when making pictures, reminiscent of cognitive behavioural therapy in particular, in that the process works on one aspect of behavioural cognition to change another behavioural cognition. Normally there's a client-therapist relationship within which the therapist asks the client to contemplate what change might be like and help the client develop strategies towards changing the behaviours once the desire is there. Something I'd be interested in following up with this, exploring further, is that it may share something in common with mutual aid fellowships, where bonds are formed and reinforced within client groups by a common purpose, and in most cases that's one of recovery from process substance addiction. While each person's experience may be different, the aim of an improvement in quality of life is common. So 4 papers I found and looked at were photography as a means to overcome health anxiety and increase vitality, and that was a local group intervention in an ailing city district by Jan Sitvast. The second, natural landscape photography on anxiety and depression in occupational population by Wang. That one's out of China. The third was using therapeutic photography techniques to increase the well-being of college students, and that was Alicia Tourigny and Evelina Naydenova. Sorry for mangling that pronunciation. And the fourth was one called Through the Windows of the Soul, a pilot study using photography to enhance meaning in life. That was by 4 authors. I've included links to the papers in the episode notes, but the things I got, the simple takeaways that I got from these papers were a newly acquired sense of subjective vitality, the feeling that one is alive and there is more to life than oppressive problems, and one does not stand alone and one can feel connected with other people, came from the first one. And the second, natural landscape photography can to an extent alleviate anxiety and depression levels of workers in both manual and sort of more cerebral fields, whether that's management or students, whatever. The third I found particularly interesting was their observation that during the taking of the picture, The photographer regarded it as an act of hedonism, but when reflecting on the process with the aid of a physical copy of the picture, and that was important, they were able to reconnect with memories of the things that bring joy to their lives. So it acted like a gateway. And that was something that popped up in the fourth one. The process of reflecting on why people selected particular content for their pictures. That can be leveraged to facilitate conversations about self-understanding, values clarity, and purposeful activity. So that was just 4 papers. In conclusion, mental health has been mentioned several times in some of the photography podcasts that I listen to, specifically of Photographic Life and the Photography Daily podcasts. So I thought I'd have a bit of a dig into what kind of background they might have, and it turns out that it's there. It was a cursory review. Well, it wasn't even a review, it's just a glance at the openly available literature. Shows that there's evidence for use of photography as an aid to mental health, using the same mechanisms as CBT and ACT. Where does that leave me? What does that mean for me? I think, given my skill, I think there's an opportunity there to really have a look at this, and maybe go forward into education or further education with something along these lines. It's nice to hear that the stuff that I'm listening to has a background. I don't know if the people who make those podcasts have even looked into this, or whether they're relying on an anecdotal experience. But the benefits are there. I think there's something there about trying to find a way of facilitating that in a measurable way. There's always more research to be done, but maybe there's something there that I can use in terms of a further education, a further degree, which I will look into. But I will. I've been in contact with the makers of both of these podcasts before, but I'll send them a line just saying, look, this is what I can see, and thank you very much for what you do. So I'll sign off for now, and I look forward to seeing you for the next episode. Thanks very much for taking the time.